It's the 26th of June and I'm Tom Glasson. Welcome to The Roast. Well, last night, Clive Palmer was joined by Al Gore to announce Palmer's bold new stance on climate change. And after building the Titanic 2 and his very own Jurassic Park, it's great that Clive has finally come up with something not based on an Academy Award-winning movie. And it's an Inconvenient Truth. He's doing Inconvenient Truth too. Honestly, this guy. I will say this though, I cannot wait until James Cameron visits and we get to hear Clive Palmer's policy on preserving the Na'vi. First up though, Mark Humphries with the headlines.
We start with the World Cup, where Luis Suarez, the only soccer player who needs a mouthguard to protect other players, is preparing his defence after FIFA charged him with biting an Italian opponent. Suarez is facing a lengthy ban if found guilty of biting Italy's Giorgio Chiellini, seen here looking delicious. His lawyers only have a short time to put together his defence. I'd love to hear his explanations. Your Honour, I thought the phrase was bite it like Beckham. His shoulder bit my teeth. Nike told me to just do it. Chiellini is a superfood. Biting is part of my religion. I'm Jewish. Once this case is finished, FIFA will be turning their attention to the world's most prolific shoulder biter, Pierce Brosnan. North Korea, the country where every man and his son can be a supreme leader, has announced a new comedy film about a plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un. The Interview, or as it's known in North Korea, No Film for You, Get Back to Work, has been condemned by a spokesman from the Foreign Ministry.
It is a blatant act of terrorism and war and will absolutely not be tolerated.
Careful, North Korea may use one of their nuclear weapons. The criticism of this film comes just days after North Korea threatened to punish Foreign Minister Julie Bishop for comments made during a radio interview. So just to recap, according to North Korea, Julie Bishop, James Franco, Seth Rogen, terrorists, Dennis Rodman, best friend forever. And finally, Foreign Minister Julie Bishop has announced the release of a new series of Australian passport. Miss Bishop, who never gets in trouble for smiling in her passport photos, says that the new passport incorporates technology that assists in combating fraud. A valuable improvement since, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, personal fraud costs Australians $1.4 billion, or the cost of renewing one passport. Though if Miss Bishop wants to minimise fraud, she should probably stop inviting people to download her portrait photo. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, I hear Kim Jong-un plastered that photo of Bishop onto a mannequin, blew it up and told his people punishment had been swift. Next up tonight, Clive Palmer has announced his party's new climate change policy, and it's a departure from their original one of, hey, come on, it's my first day. During the announcement, Palmer, seen here testing which way the wind was blowing before changing his policies again on issues of great national importance, was joined by former US Vice President and man who gave Microsoft PowerPoint its sexy back, Al Gore. Protector of the Earth, crusader for the climate, and freedom fighter for boiling frogs. Palmer took to the stage to announce his plans to support the scrapping of the carbon tax, but only if the government agreed to keep the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, the Renewable Energy Target, and the Climate Change Authority. Sort of a 3-for-1 deal, which incidentally is also the motto of the Palmer United Party. And given the Abbott government's environmental policies, well, Clive Palmer's proposal was a welcome relief to the Earth, but not good enough for Al Gore.
While I will be disappointed if the immediate price on carbon is removed, because it is a policy which I believe to be ultimately critical to solving the climate crisis, I am extremely hopeful that Australia will continue to play a global leadership role on this most pressing issue.
Now you watch yourself, Gore. You're in Palmer country now. And in Palmer country, playing your part in pressing global leadership issues is only called to an abrupt halt for emergencies.
Thank you all very much.
Well, we have to go now to urgent dinner, but we'll be back later. But thank you. Have a talk to Andrew about questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, when does Andrew get to eat dinner? Also, look at the time. An urgent dinner? That was at 5:41 p.m. That is a late lunch at best. For a billionaire, he sure is keen on making it to happy hour. And the changes in policy were a surprise move from the mining baron. So, what is Clive's position now?
Climate change is a global problem and it must have a global solution. air moves around the world.
Ah, so he's finally realised that air doesn't just stick to international borders. I suppose if you didn't know that very basic fact about air, you could be forgiven for denying climate change. But there were some in the media who were less forgiving of Clive and his watertight air-based arguments, like Tony Jones, who challenged Palmer on Lateline about his change of heart.
I'm still trying to get my head around how much you've changed in the matter of 2 or 3 months. What actually changed your mind here? It can't have been half an hour with Al Gore in your office today.
Can't it have been, Tony? I think you underestimate the persuasive power of former US Vice President Al Gore. And you'll find out why in this week's episode of everyone's favourite environmentally friendly, made from recycled drawings, children's satirical comedy show, Lammy and the Brick.
It's Lammy and the Brick.
In Climate Change a Go-Go.
And I said, I don't care what 97% of climate scientists say. I don't believe it. Brick, brick. Who's that?
Oh boy, it's Academy Award winner Al Gore.
Al Gore?
Palmosaurus, you know who I am. I've come to talk to you about climate change.
No Al's gonna change my policies on climate change.
Sounds like you've been speaking to the wrong Hals. I've got a great slideshow for you.
Well, make it quick. I've a meeting in half an hour.
That's all I need. Okay, so the rate at which energy is received from the sun and the rate at which it is lost.
You lost me.
So air moves around the world.
No.
Okay, so here's a frog in boiling water.
Right. Can I eat the frog?
No, you are the frog.
I'm the frog?
Yes.
I'm the frog. I'm the air. Oh my God! Al Gore has changed my mind on climate change, so I've decided to implement an emissions trading scheme. But only when all Australia's trading partners do so. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have to go to an urgent dinner. Something about a frog soup.
Clive Palmer, slowly being moulded into something we can respect if he actually follows through with what he's saying and understands it all properly.
I can't wait for the next episode where Al Gore eats a field mouse and then feels incredibly guilty. So what would entice the Academy Award-winning former US Vice President and Nobel Peace Prize recipient to team up with our boy Clive? Surely it was more than top bunk and a pick of the lifeboats on Titanic 2.
We bought him lunch or dinner.
Clive Palmer there once again reminding us he's not a details guy. But given his preference for only being around things named after himself, I'm sure whatever the meal was, they ate it at the world-renowned Palmer Grill. You know, I hear they have fantastic food and a politically biased colour scheme. But questions have been raised as to why Al Gore chose to support Palmer's trading scheme, which would replace an incoming one that is arguably better. And if you watch the video from the conference closely, chief among those questioners is Al Gore himself.
Interests of all people of the world.
So he's proposing to get rid of a carbon tax that will transition to an emissions trading scheme within a week, for an alternative scheme that he has no power to bring to legislation. Sure are a lot of cameras here. Oh God, what have I done?
That is the exact expression my wife made when she said, I do. Well, I'll say to Al Gore what I said to Gwendolyn. It's too late now, baby. It's all over the news. We'll be right back.
Have you ever convinced a famous environmentalist to back a policy that's worse for the environment than the policy it's replacing? How did you manage to do it? Tony Abbott would love to hear about it. At The Roast TV or hashtag RoastTV.
So while Clive Palmer's non-committal, out-of-the-blue publicity stunt might seem like some wacky perversion of politics, what if it's not? What if we're the perversion? What if Clive Palmer is actually a lot like Andre 3000 and Ms. Jackson for real? These are questions that really can only be answered in the Roast's newest segment, which always shows affection to the away team, the Devil's Advocate.
The Devil's Advocate.
So glad you could join me, Thomas.
This is where you always slide in from.
Yes.
It's also where we keep the spare light bulbs and the dodgy broom.
All right. Now, Nick, I know you're the devil's advocate for Clive Palmer, but you have to admit his press conference was a bit of a stunt. I mean, even the host of Australia's most theatrical political show, Q&A, wasn't having a bar of it.
Why shouldn't we regard this whole piece of extraordinary, admittedly extraordinary political theatre as nothing more than a stunt, like your old boss, Joe Bjelke-Peterson, used to do, feeding the chooks to keep them occupied?
Sure, some say political theatre, but I say...
theatricality works.
Thank you, sexy voice. See, while most politicians announce policy in long, boring press releases that gets them a 3-paragraph write-up on page 3, Palmer rocks up to the Great Hall of Parliament House with Captain Planet's dad, fires off some truth bombs, then drops the mic and heads for an urgent feed. That's page 1 news, baby! The man knows how to make headlines. Specifically, this one headline.
OK, but that's the thing, because he didn't go into detail. You know, Labor and the Greens are asking why he's so ignorant about existing policy.
I don't know whether Clive Palmer actually understands we've already got an emissions trading scheme, that it's legislated, that it's already linked with the European Union.
He doesn't understand, or...
he's playing the game.
That emissions trading scheme we have legislated will never happen because Tony Abbott wants to destroy the carbon tax more than those American girls want to marry Prince Harry. Oof. Palmer sees the writing on the wall, so instead he's pushing for a kinda crap version of the real thing, like that guy who's pretending to be Harry. I gotta say, I'd marry that, not Harry.
OK, I guess it is something, but isn't there a legitimate criticism that Clive Palmer is a climate change flip-flopper?
I'm still trying to get my head around how much you've changed in the matter of 2 or 3 months.
Some say flip-flopper, I say he's...
listening to expert opinion.
Tom, the Palmer United Party is 1 year old and its baby brain hasn't been imprinted with anything yet. The little fella's just rolling around, drooling on itself and putting half-boiled frogs in its mouth. But now it's got a Nobel Prize laureate as a cheerleader who's helping them write party policy. Is that such a bad thing?
Well, no, I guess not.
So while some may call what Clive has done cynical and attention-seeking and lacking substance, you know what else could be described that way?
I want to marry Harry.
Politics, Tom.
Politics, Tom.
Thank you, sexy voice. All right, Gleason, leave my realm.
All right.
But watch out for that dodgy broom.
Ah! I had no idea that place was there this whole time. I really should turn my head more. So, Clive has finally announced an actual policy, and all it took was a short chat with some guy in a suit. But let's hope he's not going to be this impressionable all the time.
Clive Palmer has softened his tough stance on the budget after meeting the Prime Minister in Canberra this morning.
Ah, come on!
Good night.
King Broom!